All right, we're heading deep into the woods of American folklore today, to a place where the line between what's real and what's legend gets, well, it gets incredibly thin. We're talking about a place known as the Bennington Triangle.
Just look at this place. This is Vermont's Green Mountains. It's the kind of scenery that just calls out to hikers and anyone who loves nature. But starting back in the 1940s, this idyllic landscape became famous for something far more sinister. It earned a reputation as a place where people walk in and just don't walk out.
So, the Bennington Triangle, it's not an official place you can find on any map. It's a name people gave to this area centered on Glastenbury Mountain, and it got that name after a truly terrifying string of vanishings happened in the mid-20th century. Think about it, 5 people in just 5 years, completely gone without a trace.
To really understand this mystery, you first have to understand the place itself. Because long before anyone vanished, this land, it had a reputation. This is a place where the landscape itself feels like a main character in a very, very dark story.
The history of this land really sets the stage. I mean, this isn't just a bunch of empty woods, it's a vast wilderness dotted with actual ghost towns from a logging boom that went bust. The town of Glastenbury, which is right in the heart of the triangle, used to have over 200 residents. By 1937, it was officially shut down. Throw in a few unsolved murders back in the 1890s, and you've got a place already steeped in this feeling of unease.
And the legends, oh, they go back even further. The local Abenaki tribe, for the most part, avoided this area. They believed Glastenbury Mountain was cursed, a place where the 4 winds met and just acted erratically. And they had this one specific, absolutely chilling legend of a man-eating stone that would literally swallow people whole.
That eerie history became a terrifying reality between 1945 and 1950. This, right here, is the heart of the whole thing, the 5 disappearances that would define the Bennington Triangle forever.
I mean, the timeline is just so compressed. It all starts in 1945 and it's over just 5 years later in 1950. 5 people from completely different walks of life all gone. You can imagine the growing sense of panic and just total bewilderment in those small Vermont towns. And the very first case immediately defied any easy explanation. Middie Rivers was 74. Yeah, but he was an expert. He knew these woods better than anyone. He's guiding a group, walks ahead of them around a bend, and that was it. Vanished. The only thing searchers ever found was a single rifle cartridge from his belt lying in a nearby stream. The case of Paula Welden, though, that changed everything. She was an 18-year-old college sophomore who went for a hike and just never came back. The search was massive, but it was also completely disorganized, and it highlighted a huge problem. Vermont had no statewide law enforcement. The public criticism was so intense that just 7 months later, as a direct result, the Vermont State Police was officially formed. But if you want to talk about pure, baffling strangeness, it's got to be the James Tetford case. His disappearance didn't even happen in the woods. He was a war veteran on a bus, seen by 14 other passengers. When the bus got to its destination, Tetford was gone, but all his luggage, his wallet, it was all still on the rack right above his empty seat. He just vanished into thin air from a moving vehicle.
And then came the terrifying climax in October of 1950. 2 disappearances happened just 16 days apart. First, 8-year-old Paul Jepson vanished from his family's farm. His mother left him in their truck for just a few minutes while she fed some pigs, and when she came back, he was gone.
Just over 2 weeks after Paul Jepson disappeared, Frida Langer vanished. She and her cousin were hiking. She slipped and fell in a stream. She told him, "Hey, I'm just going back to the campsite to change, be right back." She never was. Now here's the kicker. She is the only one of the 5 whose body was ever found. But her remains were discovered 6 months later in an open area that had been scoured by search parties over and over again. It left everyone asking, how on earth did we miss her?
Okay, so you have 5 impossible disappearances in 5 years. What could possibly explain it all? Well, the theory is really split into 2 very distinct camps, pitting the completely rational world against the paranormal.
So on one side, you have the logical explanations. The stuff rooted in the tangible world. A dangerous wilderness, a string of terrible accidents, maybe even a serial killer. But on the other side, you've got theories that embrace all that strange history. We're talking ancient curses, a local monster, or something else that just defies any rational thought.
The most straightforward theory is that the landscape itself is the culprit. The Green Mountains are beautiful, absolutely, but they are also incredibly rugged and wild. It is so easy to get lost. The weather can turn on you in an instant. This land is unforgiving, and tragedy can strike even the most experienced people out there.
And skeptics correctly point out that this is a huge area, riddled with old wells and sinkholes. They also note that some of the victims, like Paula Welden and definitely James Tetford, technically disappeared outside the commonly defined triangle. And when you look at the victims, a young boy, a college student, 2 elderly men, a middle-aged woman, they just don't fit the typical profile for a single serial killer.
But for every one of those rational points, there's a deeply strange counterpoint. How does a man vanish from a moving bus? How does a body just appear months later in a heavily searched field? And then you have those local legends of the Bennington monster, a Bigfoot-like creature that people have claimed to see in the area since the 19th century. For believers, these aren't just 5 separate accidents, they're a pattern.
So whether you're a skeptic or a believer, the story of the Bennington Triangle has become a fixture of American folklore. The real question is, why? Why does this particular mystery hold such a powerful grip on our imagination? Well, it's interesting because for decades, these were just a series of local, unsolved cases. The name that ties them all together, the Bennington Triangle, wasn't even created until 1992. An author and folklorist named Joseph Citro coined the term, giving the phenomenon this catchy, memorable identity that really helped launch it into the national consciousness. And its influence even spread into literature. The famous author Shirley Jackson, who wrote The Haunting of Hill House, she actually lived in North Bennington right when the disappearances were happening. And the vanishing of Paula Welden is widely believed to have been the direct inspiration for her deeply unsettling novel, Hanks Man. And so, here we are, and the questions are still hanging in the air. Was this just a string of tragic coincidences in a harsh wilderness? Or does the truth lie with something else? Something that taps into those ancient, eerie legends of the land itself? The answer is still out there.
In the end, maybe the explanation doesn't matter as much as the story itself. The Bennington Triangle endures because it reminds us that there are still corners of our world that are wild, unexplained, and just deeply mysterious. It speaks to that fascination we all have with the idea that just beyond the path, something unknown is waiting.